Hey, what's up?
What's up, Gregory? How you doing?
Doing good. So yeah, I understand you're like a Trump, not like a sycophant, you said, but like you're a Trump fan and you support what he's doing in general,
Correct.
right? Okay, cool. So like, would you still support Trump if he broke if he broke the Constitution,
If he broke the Constitution,
like knowingly and willingly?
no, I would hate him forever. He would be the worst thing in the entire world. Are you going to tell me why you think that he's like violated the Constitution or something?
Well, it's not really like a thing, right? It's if you like, if he act. Do you believe like someone violating the Constitution is a good thing or a bad thing?
That's a no-no. It's a very
Yeah,
frowned upon thing to do.
Yeah, right. So he is actively like violating the 10th Amendment, and he already lost a case back in his first
Really?
presidency. Yeah, he's trying to remove federal funding from sanctuary cities. That's an active violation of the 10th Amendment that he already lost back in his first term.
Remind me, what is the 10th Amendment?
The 10th Amendment gives states the right to not comply with federal policy, but that's not outlined in the Constitution. And they can make their own laws as well, things like that.
You were so close, but then you were also not correct. I actually wish that you were correct. That would be nullification as described by Jefferson in the Kentucky-Virginia resolutions. The 10th Amendment says that all powers not specifically given to the federal government, an example would be Article 1, Section 2, the 18 enumerated powers of Congress, nor prohibited from the states, are reserved for the states and the people, respectively. So 10th Amendment, I'm a big believer in the 10th Amendment, huge believer in the 10th Amendment. It's states' rights.
Yeah.
It's not very often I hear somebody make an argument against Republicans for like a violation of 10th Amendment. So you're saying something about funding? The federal government?
Yeah, so
it's right to have federal funding?
Well, it's not a state right to have federal funding, but when they receive that federal funding, you can't have, there's things called like anti-commandeering laws, where a federal entity can't try to coerce a state into following the federal policy.
Really? So like all of the federal, because maybe that's true, I'm not familiar with the statute or whatever, but the federal government, when they give states money, there's strings attached to every federal dollar. So
yes.
they pull the federal funding. So you, in principle, you disagree with the idea that Trump would refuse to fund, for example, California for being a sanctuary state. You think that he should be somewhat compelled to fund them with federal tax dollars?
Well, so on that, right, there can be conditions laid out that was deemed constitutional. That was like South Dakota versus Dole, where they started putting conditions on federal funding for highways for the drinking age. But it cannot be seen as coercive. So you cannot remove all federal funding. I believe John Roberts, in the case with Obama back in 2010, I think it was called the NFIB. Versus like Satro, how the fuck you say that, was told he cannot, you cannot remove all federal funding because it's seen as coercion, like a gun to the head. So that was deemed unconstitutional, and that's how we kind of got the anti-commandeering laws. There's some other cases, I think it's Pritz versus the United States too, where this is laid out on what things can and can't be seen as coercive, because removing federal funding basically makes a state like a puppet entity of the federal government, and that's seen as wrong. So sanctuary cities are deemed legal, right? You would agree with that, right?
They shouldn't be.
Well, I mean, but they are though, right?
So again, back to my question, which I had asked prior. Do you think that the federal government should be compelled to fund, for example, California, like as if it's almost like they have an obligation, no matter what California would do, they just need to continue to fund California?
It depends. If they're actively doing something unconstitutional, I imagine you could withhold funding and revoke funding from that. But when they are complying with the laws and the Constitution, you cannot start taking money away to enforce federal policy.
So what if, could you understand the perspective at least, what if there was a governor who had decided to do something that was maybe aiding and abetting what one might call a foreign invasion, or prohibiting, collaboration with federal law enforcement to repeal an invasion or something of that nature? Would you understand why somebody might think that they shouldn't be getting federal funding?
I absolutely understand that, right? But that would be illegal for them to do that, though, right? You would agree?
No, I actually wouldn't agree with you. I can maybe sympathize with the idea that there's probably going to be some litigation about this.
Well, it's already been litigated.
As far as President Trump, well, it's among the process of being litigated. Has it been denied for appeal at any point?
No. So back in 2017, Trump did the same exact thing. It's in California v. Trump. This was already litigated. He already got denied from the Supreme Court for a writ of certiorari. How the fuck you say? Certiorari. And it
What
was.
year was that?
This was 2018. It got denied in like 2020.
So the bench
but it was.
has changed since then.
Wait, what happened?
So the bench has changed. We have new members. We've obviously, if it was 2020, then the Trump appointees were all in. I presume.
Well, yeah. There was 2020 when it got denied for the Supreme Court, but it was 2018 when it was voted on.
So whenever it comes to the litigation process, this is why I take issue with people saying that Donald Trump has definitively violated the Constitution because there's ongoing litigation about it. The courts have changed their minds about issues many, many times. I mean, you're familiar. I'm sure you're well versed on the existing case law whenever it pertains to this particular issue. So you probably know about like the Korematsu cases and in certain times where we look throughout history and we think, oh my gosh, maybe the court made a mistake on that one. And then whenever the bench changes, I mean, we saw this with Roe v. Wade being overturned with Dobbs, bringing forward a circumstance where you would have the court revisit something, I don't believe to be some, frowned upon thing. The bench has changed in the time since whatever happened. I doubt it's an exact one-to-one replica for one thing, but we'll see it go through the appeals process and maybe Trump is wrong, in which case he's not going to be able to do it. So he won't be able to hold that funding and it'll be okay. I mean, we could look at examples of, Joe Biden, Barack Obama. If we dig throughout history, we're going to find that probably every administration, I can't say this for 100% certainty, but probably every administration has had something at some point in time that they tried to do where a court told them that they can't do it. So if this is the standard to say, well, we can't support President Trump because a court disagreed with him one time, you're going to find very quickly that you can't support anybody. So is that to say that we should just be willy-nilly doing things that we don't believe to be constitutional? Of course not. But the idea that because a court would disagree with him on something, throw the baby out with the bathwater, I fundamentally disagree with that, and I think you'll have a really hard time finding anybody that you would ever support.
So to be clear, it's not just one federal court. These have been multiple federal courts across the United States that have actively disagreed with Trump in his first term. Knowing this, he's still trying to do that unilaterally, by the way, too. In South Dakota versus Dole, right? These revocations were made by Congress. So Trump could be seen as breaking his Article 2 powers by unilaterally doing it. But also, so Trump knowingly already lost these cases. It already got denied for to be heard by the Supreme Court, and that makes it okay for him to do it again. So what constitutional law could any president break that you would ever definitively say that's a bad thing? I don't know, something that's so clear and written out, and it has only been like 4 years since it got denied, 4 or 5 years. So I don't.
I'll reiterate what I said before in that the bench has changed since 2020. We have probably 2 new members to the bench. ACB probably, I don't know the exact timeline, but she was like at the very, very end there. So probably ACB was not in whenever it came to the last one. And then we have Jackson with Joe Biden. So we have a different bench right now. And as I mentioned before, the Supreme Court has changed their mind on issues. But again, I want you to address this, if you will. What I said about every administration, probably, I mean, it stands to reason that probably every administration we've had has at one point in time had the legal system tell them that they're not allowed to do something. Very often that president will then go and try and figure out another way to do this. We saw it, by the way, with Joe Biden being told that he couldn't unilaterally just cancel student debt, and then he tried to do it again. And so this is a very common thing where somebody runs into a hill, they figure out, oh, well, the court doesn't like me doing it this way, I'm going to try again. And of course, there's going to be some sort of a slight change. They're going to try and rework it. The legal team is going to try and create a better theory, a better whatever it might be. How do you contend with my objection to your standard, which is that if a president has the court disagree with them, they're like a bad guy, they violated the Constitution?
Yeah, so when Joe Biden went and tried doing the student loan forgiveness after the courts told no, he tried pursuing that through a more legal means. It wasn't, he tried the unconstitutional, he got some ruled unconstitutional and then he tried pursuing it by legal means. Trump is doing the exact same thing he did in 2017. Exactly. It's not
really quick. So I want to get back to this again, and I won't pester indefinitely about it, but right. The idea that a president can do something, he gets told, no, bad boy, and then he tries it again and tries to present it. It's not the exact same thing because it's going to be different circumstances, so the facts of the case will have changed, which could, of course, I'm sure you know this, change the outcome of a litigation or something. So it is absolutely true to say that the circumstances are different, albeit maybe fairly similar, but they're going to be different. So the Trump administration is going to try it again. How do you contend with the idea that basically every administration ever has at some point been told, no, you can't do that, and then they tried it again? Because I think the standard that you're applying is an unreasonable one, because you'll quickly find that you're literally prohibited by your own standard from ever supporting any administration ever.
Yeah. So I don't believe, I believe Trump is doing something uniquely bad. I feel like under the case of Joe Biden, which is as far as like my legal expertise, or not expertise, but like my legal knowing goes of someone violating the Constitution and then trying to pursue it by another means. That's as far as I go. So from Joe Biden specifically, him pursuing it through legal means, I don't see that as a directly bad thing because the courts told him no. By Trump doing it, I feel like, I mean, we can also inference from every other thing Trump has been doing through his executive orders, through like his First Amendment violations, that he's probably doing this in bad faith. Seems nothing to be good about the Trump administration, and we can make a logical inference. Him trying to unilaterally revoke funding from sanctuary cities is definitely a bad faith interpretation.
I disagree. I want him to revoke the funding from sanctuary cities.
Well, I mean, to be clear, I'm not for sanctuary cities either, right? But that doesn't just mean like if you believe in any type of federalism, which people we're all for federalism with Abbott in Texas, but now when it's Trump, we're all a pro-democracy, he has the mandate kind of people, right? So
the federalism idea, though, what you're saying about federalism, I don't think to be a proper understanding of federalism, because when you're talking about like Greg Abbott, I'd be curious what specific example you would cite as Greg Abbott doing a 10th Amendment thing. I mean, you might be able to point to states that have, for example, legalized recreational marijuana in violation of federal law. That would be more an instance of like trying to take a Jeffersonian nullification approach. But as far as we're talking about funding, we're talking about funding that the state has no right to. So it could very easily be the opinion of the administration that they want to reverse bad case law, and so they're going to try again. And I mean, I know you can say that it's a unique circumstance. I'm just telling you it's not. And you can go and do more digging into this. You're going to find very often that presidents try and try and try again. I mean, FDR, who is like a legend of the left,
he was pretty bad. Which
times he continually got beat down over and over until he eventually threatened to expand the court, and they called it the change in time that saved 9. And then all of a sudden, they start siding with him. So, what I'm saying is you're going to very quickly find that you've set what I believe to be an unreasonable standard. If you're trying to make the case that you think Trump doesn't respect the Constitution, whatever it might be, you might have better cases than withholding funding from a sanctuary city. I personally am not convinced of the argument that you're making. Maybe other people will be, but we could continue to go round and round. I'm not convinced of the argument that you're trying to make. You know what I'm saying?
So I'll just try just this one other approach, right? So with the I don't know if you're allowed to say it, but the green leaf in California, if for that specific, would you be okay if Trump unilaterally revoked every single federal funding going to California for having that policy?
I mean, in principle, I do not like marijuana, so maybe
I don't smoke either.
I might. I'm not a marijuana supporter. But anyways, as far as his ability to revoke federal funding, I think that he could. I think he certainly could. And I think that we've seen this happen many, many times. I could probably, if I was given 20 minutes or so, come back with a laundry list of examples of the Biden administration withholding federal funding, threatening to withhold federal funding from states for a whole plethora of issues that were political. I don't believe that a state has some sort of a right to federal tax dollars. They have a right to whatever they have from their own income, of course, and maybe the protection of federal tax dollars through the military and things like that. But yeah, I think that as a matter of prudence, it would be wise to be careful about these kinds of things, just yanking funding willy-nilly and politicizing it tremendously. But it's been done. It's been done by everybody.
I don't believe it. When it has been done, these have been brought to the courts, and usually the government loses. Sorry, not usually. The government loses every single time. There's some course of measure taken to remove federal funding. This has been done before, and Trump is doing nothing different. That we have tons of cases. Like, would you be fine? Is there any type of infraction on the Constitution that you would say is a bad infraction of the Constitution?
Oh, of course. If something is like a clear, so for example, Kamala Harris ran on a campaign saying that she was going to ban a huge classification of firearms. That would be a very clear black and white violation of the Second Amendment, for example, or things like that. Yeah, that is undeniably horrifically wrong. If we're talking about some sort of a dispute regarding funding and the allocation of funding, that's just not going to meet muster for me.
Okay, so I mean, I just don't understand, because we have a ton of case law stemming back to the 80s on coercive behaviors from the executive on how you cannot do that. Like, it was the same thing in the Obama administration when they tried doing that. It was seen as illegal.
So Obama violated the Constitution, and Obama's a terrible guy, right?
Well, so when Obama attempted to do this, so this was also through Congress, by the way, but when this would happen under Obama, he didn't pursue this afterwards, right? He didn't pursue trying to remove federal funding.
It's okay if you violate the Constitution once, but if you try and change it and then try and, it's okay.
When I say the Obama administration, it was under Congress. Well, to be clear, it was under Congress. So they deemed that this was for the ACA or. The ACA, and they were trying to withhold some Medicare funding from certain states that didn't comply with it. So John Roberts wrote this whole opinion piece on it and stated how that was explicitly illegal, how Congress couldn't do that. I'm saying Obama just because, but Trump is literally writing executive orders. So like you can find this on the whitehouse.gov.
Do you dispute that President Obama at any point did something and then the court told him he's not allowed to do that?
Yes.
You dispute, so you don't think at any point...
Sorry. I agree with that. I agree with that.
Okay, so by the standard that you have set, and this is what we're just going to end up coming back to about, by the standard that you've set, Barack Obama tried to violate the Constitution, which is the first question that you would ask me. If somebody tries to violate the Constitution, are they a naughty bad boy? I'm just telling you that everyone is going to end up, by the standard that you're setting, and this might trip some people up, but if they're not willing to think about the context of the country as a whole, this is going to apply to basically every administration. It's going to apply probably to most governors, so on and so forth. And also, even local politics. We probably have mayors that get told they can't do things. That's not when we get out the pitchforks and go, rah, like this is the end of the world. And I don't think that many Americans are going to be siding with sanctuary cities, man. I just really don't.
Yeah, I'm not in for sanctuary cities either. I'm like pro police. I'm mainly pro ICE, right? But that's just one of the key components of the Constitution. I feel like he's actively like. For something else, like for the Mahmoud Khalil case, for the party that loves free speech, like how can you support what the Trump administration's doing and trying to detain and deport Mahmoud Khalil? That's pretty bad, right? That's complete First Amendment violation.
Who is it? What'd they do?
Mahmoud Khalil. So Marco Rubio tried deporting Mahmoud Khalil, who was a green card holder, for having viewpoints that align with Hamas, which is obviously a First Amendment violation. Just having viewpoints that align with Hamas doesn't give you any chance to remove them. He's citing this INA provision that gives the Secretary discretion to deport anyone, but I'm sure the Supremacy Clause gives the Constitution the Constitution is the most highest authority, so it has to be constitutional when they try to deport like a green card holder. So it clearly wasn't. It was a First Amendment violation.
So wait, but what you just said there, I think that's important. So what was Rubio's justification again?
Rubio's justification is that he has full discretion as a Secretary of State.
So, but you dispute...
And that he had viewpoints that align with Hamas.
But do you dispute that Rubio has the full discretion to do that?
No, I don't, but I believe that discretion has to be constitutional.
If he has full discretion, he has full discretion.
Well, you agree he wouldn't be able to deport someone based off their skin color. That'd be a 14th Amendment violation, right?
He has full discretion. If somebody is here... because we've given them temporary permission, whether that's a green card, whether it's like a visa or something like that. You don't have to like it, but if he has full discretion, which I think you said you don't dispute, that he has full discretion, they can be deported. That temporary permission to be here can be removed for whatever reason. Now, I'm sure it's going to be litigated. I'm sure it's going to go all the way up.
It has
all the way to the
been
Supreme
litigated.
Court. It's in the process of litigation. It's not been concluded. So,
Well, we don't know if they're going to appeal yet, but
I'm
probably
sure it's going to go through the appeal process. It's probably going to end up at the Supreme Court, and maybe at some point in time we'll be talking about it as a matter of case law, and we'll have some sort of a thing. Maybe Congress is going to change the law and say, actually, we need to clarify, because unfortunately the way that we wrote it gave full discretion to the Secretary of State, and we don't like the way that he's using it. So then maybe Congress could go and put in a clarification clause or something like that. What exactly did this guy do? I mean, did he just say something in the public square that Rubio disagreed with? What was it?
So they're not.
That he probably did something quite dramatic to catch the attention of the Secretary of State. I mean, if he's just some random guy, the odds of the Secretary of State knowing of his
so he's a negotiator for a pro-Palestinian group on Columbia University. There has been a ton of testimony. I've read the testimony from some students, teachers. Columbia University themselves said he was a negotiator. People tried making him out to be this rapid terrorist and everything. It's not true. But okay. I want to go specifically on what you said. So you would agree with the supremacy clause gives the Constitution authority over every single law. All laws have to adhere to the Constitution, right?
Of course.
So it's kind of understood that this law would have to be constitutional in its merit, right? So him deporting someone based off his discretion, that would have to be constitutional, right? You would agree he couldn't
challenge the law.
Well,
So
no.
You're making that the law is unconstitutional, because if this goes and is litigated all the way to the top and all that stuff, eventually what's going to have to be done is, well, one of two things, I suppose. They could say that Rubio is misinterpreting the law, which is possible, I suppose. Maybe they view that there's some sort of a de facto clarification in here. The other thing that would happen is that they would strike down the law, and they would say, well, no, the law has to have some sort of a clarification or something like that. But what did the guy do? I mean, he was a negotiator for a pro-Hamas group. What did that pro-Hamas group do?
Pro-Palestinian.
Oh, sorry, pro-Palestinian. What did that group do?
The group was claimed to barricade themselves on Columbia. They would claim to be saying anti-Semitic things to some of the Jewish students around the campus. Those are the claims, not accused by Marco Rubio, but these are just the what's said on the media and what's kind of understood.
Was it said, or was it documented? I don't know. I don't.
This has not been documented at all. So the only thing,
there's no record of this having ever happened.
This hasn't ever been. In Marco Rubio's memorandum, he's not accusing Mahmoud Khalil of doing any of this. The only thing he's accusing Mahmoud Khalil of doing is having viewpoints that align with Hamas.
I'm just asking what happened to bring it to his attention, because obviously there's a reason it got to his attention. And so if I have the facts of the case correct, we have a guy who was a negotiator, which is a really weird thing. What was he?
Mediator. So he was supposed to. He was trying to. That is a. I believe he was trying to get the pro-Palestinians more heard throughout the campus, to get whatever that group wanted to be done. He's trying to get that through the college, the executives at the college campus.
And so now
whatever that means.
We have a guy who is negotiating on behalf of people who may or may not have barricade, because this is probably one of those cases where they had a college campus where they barricaded the library or whatever it would be.
Yeah, one of those.
An encampment on it or something. So we have a guy who was the negotiator. You said there's a bunch of testimony. They call him the negotiator for these people. So clearly something happened for which he would negotiate. He was trying to negotiate on behalf of folks who are, I guess, advocating for Palestine or whatever it might be, Palestine. And Rubio says, we don't want that kind of raucous behavior. Because I've seen Rubio not talk maybe about this specific case, but talk about visas and green cards in the past. And he said, if you're coming here and you're causing a ruckus, if you're participating in, for example, an encampment taking over property at a public university or something, hypothetically, we're going to kick you out and you're going to go home. So maybe the case that you could make is that Rubio should have clarified and included a laundry list of all of the things about it. But if it's in his full discretion, why would he waste the time? Just tell him he's gone. Just tell him, hey, no, you're out of here, dude. Why not?
Okay, so, I mean, you would have to admit, at least fundamentally, it's anti-free speech, right? On its very fun... Well, I don't get how you can say... So the courts already ruled that it was anti-free speech. He was violating the First Amendment. And I feel like Rubio in the Department of Homeland Security already knew this as well. That's why they tried adding pretextual evidence to his case that They never brought any evidence for, and they completely dropped in their closing statement.
You're adding information that was withheld prior. So what you said, Rubio had evidence about this guy. What was the evidence that Rubio?
Well, they tried adding pretextual things for why he should be deported.
What was
with
that?
zero. It was that he lied on his green card through various means, that he was like affiliated through UNRWA. And other things, right? And then in court, when they were asked to bring through evidence multiple times, by the way, they never provided any cross-examination. They never talked to Muhammad Khalil about any of that. And then in their closing statement for the federal courts, they never even brought it up. So they kind of just dropped the whole idea that he was lying on his green card entirely. So that's a pretty bad faith attempt to try getting him deported, right? Because they knew they would lose on the merits that of the First Amendment. So they themselves, I mean, like fundamentally, right? Like deporting someone for their speech, that's anti-First Amendment, right?
No, so when a foreigner comes here on privilege status, when they come here and they're given temporary visa, work, whatever it might be, they're on best behavior. And so if they don't do best behavior and the Secretary of State has full discretion to kick them out, he can kick them out. They're not, like, I would say it would be anti-First Amendment if this was some American citizen who had just said, hey, I don't agree with whatchamacallit, and Rubio tried to punish them or something. But these are people who are here on best behavior. They are guests. I would give an analogy, maybe slightly imperfect, but it would be like a guest in your home. A guest comes into your home, they start acting stupid, they start behaving raucous. You have every right. Okay, you're a guest here. You're acting raucous and participating in a encampment on a college campus. You're going to go. You're going to leave. So again, I feel like what I'm noticing, and this is just opinion, take it for what it is, what I'm noticing is an attempt to maybe try to seem very principled, and I think that it's worthwhile to be principled. A strict adherence to the Constitution is very valuable. You won't hear me complaining about a strict adherence to the Constitution. But what you're going to see from the Trump administration is they're going to do things and they're going to get things done. And listen, stuff's going to be litigated. There's going to be stuff where, maybe even me. I mean, I've criticized the Trump administration before when I hear them do something that I think is stupid. But if you have somebody who comes to your country and they're on temporary permission, they're a guest in your nation, and they start acting a fool, are you going to get like any tears out of me when that person gets deported? No.
Yeah, so that's where I believe the problem is. I believe it starts with these little things, then it slowly extends up to the American people. Like Trump has multiple times advocated for burning the flag. American flag should be a year in prison. He just said it recently at the whole military thing where he had which by the way, he had the military booing the media and the Democrats. That's ridiculous, right? The military is supposed to be nonpartisan, but he has the military booing the media and then cheering for First Amendment violations and burning the flag, right?
I love it. No,
it's not. That's fascistic. Like,
no, that's not fascistic. It's not fascistic at all. We have a fake news media that's the enemy of the people, and President Trump says, "Hey, I don't like those people," and I don't know, maybe the military boos them. Oh well, wah. Like most of the things that you're describing, I think are awesome. Personally, is there existing precedent regarding burning the flag? Sure, I think that happened, in the 60s or something? We had the precedent, I don't remember the name of the case, but says, yeah, burning the flag is technically a freedom of speech or whatever. It's a political display, blah, blah, blah. And there's some nuance to that case law. But in theory, what we're seeing here with President Trump is that he's a patriotic fella. And he says, I don't think you should be burning the American flag. He wants to pass legislation. If he's not allowed to do it, well, they're going to say no. I don't see, truthfully, maybe I disagree with the court, and I don't think it was a universal or a unanimous opinion with the flag burning, although it may have been. I don't know what the benefit to our country is to have people burning our flag. Maybe it's a little bit silly, but, whatever. I love Trump. I really do. He's an imperfect human being. He's a populist. Maybe he's not as perfect on certain issues as we would like him to be. I'm curious, though. I'll have to go pretty soon here. It's dinner time. What is a president that you do like? Like, I've heard you don't like Trump. You don't like what, Obama did. You don't like what Biden did with certain things. You don't like, is there anybody you do like, or are you just kind of like, nobody's good kind of a situation?
Well, yeah, no, I'm not that. I actually do believe Biden is good. I don't know where I said Biden was bad. And I believe Biden's good. That's the only president I know something extensively about. I know like all the bad, like the big things like any other president has done. Like I know FDR was kind of bad for a constitutional means. He did some pretty like hyper socialist actions that maybe can be considered okay back when in the Great Depression, but He definitely did some really risque things to.
Biden's good, even though there was an invasion that he allowed to happen, which I would make the case as a dereliction of his duty to protect us from invasion. Like 10 million illegal is not such a big deal, right?
Well, yeah, I haven't seen what has been. Okay, well, I believe immigrants to our country are a good thing. I don't believe illegal immigration should be legal. To be clear, I believe there was definitely a border crisis. There was a large amount of migrants coming in. I wouldn't say. I would say Biden was probably bad in not doing more. I would agree with that. But I wouldn't say it caused any drastic problems. It probably, honestly, helped us. Really, you can't look at the crime rate and see that like there's been a spike in crime. Actually, we've been pretty much safer than any time in history since like the 70s crime rate, even like the 90s. And then we need more people to work more jobs, right? We're at a labor shortage. Homes are not enough. Homes are being built, and they take up like 15% of the home building industry. There's probably good things.
So I was talking about illegal aliens. You said illegal alien bad, but now you're talking about immigration good. So just to be clear, you're saying that legal immigration you're okay with, but you want all of the illegals to be deported.
No, I do not want all that. I believe illegals that are high utility to our country, we should give them amnesty and a pathway to citizenship, because that would most benefit our country. That would raise our GDP. That's probably beneficial to have more workers in our country. People, obviously, violent criminals, obviously deport them. We don't need them. They're terrible for our country. We should obviously have them deported.
Every last one of them. Last illegal, every single one. I don't care if they have never even jaywalked or run a stop sign. Every single one of them, I personally want them deported. I don't think there's any jobs Americans can't do. I don't think there's any hills we can't climb. Joe Biden said it best. He had that awesome speech. We are America, second to none. It's the one thing I'll give Joe Biden props for. No illegal aliens, no pathway to citizenship, no rewarding bad behavior. Every single one of them gets kicked out. But hey, Gregory, it's been a good conversation. I do appreciate it. We disagree, obviously, but it's been fun. It's been interesting to hear your thoughts on things. I'm shocked that you like Joe Biden, given some of the prior standards, but you have the right to your opinion. So, anyways, man, any final words? We're gonna pack it up. I'm gonna go make some dinner and end my 24-hour fast, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I'm very hungry. So
yeah. So I guess just Joe Biden for president 2028. Yeah.